stream is about to start. We'll talk about code or whatever we'll talk about today. It's about to start, so please hang tight while I check that everything is okay. Sound check, camera check, lights check. How's my hair? Oh, wait, I don't have any hair. Maybe put some pants on and I am good to go. So get ready wherever you are, 'cause this stream is about to start. Get ready wherever you are, 'cause this stream is about to start. Hi, I'm Leandro Facchinetti, and let's write some code together, shall we? What we have on the menu today is something very special and kind of unexpected too. So I was working on this JS effects library and adding features to it, fixing bugs and all of that. Of course, we are still far from finishing the library, but then the biggest supporter, the biggest patron of this channel asked for some new features on the Automixer, which is the first JS effects I have created. And if you are new here, JS effects are real-time audio effects in Reaper. And in the case of the Automixer, it is also a non-real-time video effect, a video processor. Reaper cannot do video in real time. That's why I use OBS, for instance, for this stream. But Reaper can edit video, and it is very good at that. I mean, in some senses, there are more advanced things like color correction. Reaper falls short. It has some features, but nothing fancy. But if you're just cutting footage, and if you want to cut long-form footage, like a conversation that lasted for hours, Reaper is great for that because you can cut automatically using the dynamic split feature. So there are good things to be said about Reaper's features when it comes to video. And one of the features that I really like is something that I built for the Automixer, which is just this way of combining multiple microphones in a room. So you have a round table, many people talking, many microphones, one per person. The Automixer is going to balance the levels of the different microphones so that it sounds more natural and it doesn't bleed as much. So a person is speaking into a microphone, that microphone will be active, but the other microphones will be lower in level. That's what an Automixer does. And what I did, which is an extension of that, is to, if you have multiple cameras, one pointing at each person, you can switch to different cameras based on who is speaking. So the audio portion of the Automixer is going to inform the video portion of the Automixer. And the Automixer, the audio portion can run live if you need that. But the video portion needs to work with pre-recorded material because Reaper cannot do video in real time. So the reason why I think that today's stream is special is because I'm going to revisit one of my first JS effects, and I'm going to try to add new features to it. And that is all because of the biggest supporter of this channel. So that's always great news. And this stream, this first one, is just about remembering how the Automixer works. And of course, there is a code review video on this channel way back in which I explained everything about the code base, but today we are going to look at it again with the intent of adding the new features. So let's talk about how the Automixer works for a moment, and I will drop it here on a track. We'll see how it behaves, and then we can talk about the video features and what we want to do to extend them. And then we'll get into the code. So, and I'm doing this, of course, for my own benefit, because I don't really remember everything that is in there. So naturally, you are not going to hear any of this. I am muting the master. I don't want to produce any noise because I'm not going to really use microphones for this test. I'm going to use tone generators and whatnot. So I have here 3 people, 3 tracks, and let's drop tone generators on each one of them. And this way we can play around with the levels. So the reason why I'm doing all of this in the stream is first because I need to remember stuff, but also to show you the process that I go through when developing these kinds of things, what kinds of things I do to test, and how I manage the files. As you see, there is some file management to do. And there is a script that you can just select. I wrote this script that you can just select the tracks and it's going to set up the Automixer for you. I could use that script, but I think I want to do everything by hand because I want to really remember how everything works. So the way that this is supposed to work is you have all the microphones in a folder. You can route this in different ways, but having that in a folder makes the most sense to me. So this parent will be, well, each microphone here is 2 channels, because in Reaper you cannot really have a track with a single channel, so every track is 2 channels. And the parent will have to have 3 tracks, 2 channels each, 3 times 2, 6. So the parent needs to have 6 tracks. And then the child, the first one, needs to send to parent channels 1 and 2. The next one will send to parent channels 3 and 4. And the last one will send to the parent 4 and 5, no, 5 and 6. So now we can see levels on all 3 of these tracks, each track being 2 channels. And then if you look at what is going to the master, well, I suppose I will not mute the master, but its volume is down. Well, I suppose I'm not having any hardware output to the master because I do want to see the levels. So here the levels you can see, it's sending some signal. But it's only sending the signal from the first 2 channels. You can see in the routing here that it's only sending to the parent, which in this case is the master track, sending channels 1 and 2. So if I mute this, everything on the master will go away, right? That's just regular Reaper routing 101. Now let's drop in the Automixer. Or you know what? I'm going to start setting things up for development here. So I have the Automixer installed because I have installed my own repack repository, but that's like the distribution version. Now I'm getting into development mode. So I have here open the repack repository. That's what I pushed to GitHub. And in here, the Automixer is right there. And over here is my Reaper configuration, my effects folder for my Reaper configuration. And naturally, here is my repack, which I installed, and then the utility has the Automixer in there. But I will have another copy of the Automixer. I will drag this from the latest version, the one that is on GitHub. I may have done changes. I don't think I did, but I may have. I'll just drag a copy over here, and I will rename this to development. So that's what I was mentioning before, the file management part of things. When you're doing development and you're keeping a repack repository and you may have multiple versions of the effect, there are, of course, different ways of going about this. I am going with the simplest thing that can work, which is to just copy files around and make sure that I remember all of them. Let's scan for new plugins. And then here is the Automixer development version. Great. So this is what the Automixer looks like. Of course, we want to improve the looks of it, but that's not what we are in here for today. But right then, you can already see that it's in action. It is hearing all these tracks. So as I change the volume of tracks, the Automixer responds. As you can see over here, it is changing the balance between the microphones. So the way you read this diagram is, these are the different tracks, 1, 2, and 3, corresponding to tracks 1, 2, and 3 over here. And this bar is the input gain or volume. It's the input. So as you can see, when I move this here, track 2 goes down. See, this bar is going, it's moving around as I do this. So that is the input. This bar in the middle, it's like your fader, except that you don't control it. It's the automatic fader in the Automixer. As I change the relative volumes of the different tracks, you can see the Automixer allocating more or less gain. So as I bring this down, this microphone is contributing less to the overall volume. It's probably bleed from someone else talking. So I take the slider down. And these other tracks that are contributing more, tracks 1 and 3, have their fader up. And then the bar on the right is the output after rebalancing everything. So these 3 microphones are combined into one. The addition of the 3 faders always adds up to 1. But of course, I'm also mixing the tracks. So the 6 inputs that we have here from tracks 1, 2, and 3, they're being combined into these 2 outputs. And you can see that when I bypass, you can see volume on all 6 channels. But when I engage the effect, you can see levels only here because it has mixed tracks 2 and 3 into this one. And then it goes to the master, which also means that if I mute any one of them, or not all of them at once, but if I mute the first one, you still see levels on the master because it's auto-mixing the other 2 tracks. So that's the basics of what the Automixer does on a high level. And the feature that I keep talking about that has to do with video, you can see that there is this video track here situation. And to demonstrate that, I think I will have 3 more tracks. I think that will be the best setup for this. So this is going to be audio. And typically when I'm doing video, I put the video above. So that's what I'm going to do. And the video doesn't have to be on a folder. I just think it's more convenient if it is on a folder. And now let's have items here that are video items. And you know what? Maybe I will have the effects here that are the tone generators on items instead. Because this way I can play with the volume automation and reproduce tests more easily without having to move faders. Yeah, I think that will be a good way to go about this. So let's drag the effect from here into the item. And then remove from the tracks. And then we can glue these items. And we can play with the item volume envelopes. So right click and take volume envelope. And this way I can make tracks go up and down without me having to click around. I can do something like this. And then without touching anything, I can see volume moving around, simulating a conversation, sort of. And of course, as we change the sonic capabilities of the Automixer, we will want to test in real dialogue, in a real podcast scenario. But for testing, I think that this is better. For development, I think that this is better. So this is the audio portion of the Automixer, and there is an item here that I don't need. Now let's do some video here. I will do this with take effects and show effects chain for active take, and I will drop in a video processor. This video processor is going to be, I'm going to set a background of red by setting the red color as the active color and then rect few rect from 0, 0 to project width, project height. And if I open the video window, it's supposed to be red, and it is. Great, so this is a video processor that is just red. Maybe instead of playing with colors, how about I just set it to white and I write a big number in the middle. So GFX string draw, and I will draw the string 1 at position 100, 100, and I will set the color for writing to be black, and this should write the number 1 there. I will also have a bigger font, so I'll do something like 100, maybe 500. That should be good, and I will put this there. Great. So now I can copy and paste this video processor and change the number in there, and that's going to be our different camera angles. Okay, so far so good, but you only see channel 1. Let's draw some automation here to test things. So I will have, to begin with, let me see how long this even is. Okay, I think I will do it like this. I will bring down the volume on everyone, and then I will simulate people speaking. So to begin with, this fellow is going to speak for a little, maybe something like this. And then maybe this person is going to speak on top, like some crosstalk. And then back to person number 1. And then person number 3. But if you look at the video, so if you look at the audio, it's going to be allocating the gain accordingly. Let's watch how the Automixer reacts to this. And this may not be too realistic. People don't usually have the microphone completely off when they're not speaking. I mean, that's the whole point, right? To eliminate bleed, so there will be some material here in the middle. Okay, that looks more realistic. I have watched this freaking screen forever, so I know what it's supposed to look like. So it's supposed to look something like this when you're using it for real. But if you look at the video portion of this, it is not changing between cameras, right? So for that to work, we have to drop a video processor on there. Well, we can do it at different levels, but I find it best, again, to put it on the folder. So I'll drop a video processor, not this. I'll drop a video processor on the folder, and I will paste this code, which came from the code for the Automixer, and I suppose that this is just plug and play. So now we should be seeing the transitions. And we do see transitions. Let's see if the transitions correspond to who is speaking. So to begin with, this is going to be somewhat random because no one is speaking. Well, I guess maybe not random. Maybe it's based on this. This is at minus 31, this is at minus 29, and this is at minus 20. Well, I was expecting to see 2 here then. Oh, but wait, did I remember to change this? I think we have forgotten. Yeah, I forgot to change this. This is camera 3. Let's double check this. If I mute the track, it's not producing video anymore. So this, oh, and I should mute this or bypass this. And then, yeah, so this is track number 3. That's all right. This is track number 2. That's all right. Track number 1. Great. Let me make this smaller. We don't need to see such a big number. And now let's engage the Automixer for video, the video processor part of things. So yeah, right now this is at minus 29, minus 20, and minus 31. So I was expecting to see 3 here, but never mind that. So it's starting at 1, then switching back to 3, and then 2, and then 1, and then 3. So it's switching all right, but it's doing something weird, isn't it? Let's make everything longer. If I just do it like this, does that work? No. I'll just stretch the items then. So it should switch to 1, and it does. Then it should switch to 2, and it does. Great, so this is working. Awesome. Okay, so I guess that's all the setup that I have to do. Let's save this project as a sort of test project. I think I will save that. Yeah, I think I'll save that next to my effects in development. No, that's not gonna work. I can save it under the repository that I pushed to repack, but I don't really want to push this project. This is more like temporary work. So I guess I will just have it. Oh no, Reaper froze. Okay, I think I'll just have it here. Create subdirectory and move all media. And I'm gonna call this dash Automixer. Great. So now we can talk about the new features that we want to add. I think I showed all the interesting bits of how the Automixer works, even the video portion of it. So what are the new features that the biggest patron of our channel, by the way, I should shout out to him. Give me a second, I'm opening his website. There you go. And this was in fact the article that got me into Reaper in the first place. And that even showed me what an Automixer was and what it was good for. So big shout outs to Riley for suggesting the features that we are about to implement and for introducing me to Reaper and for supporting all the work that we do. And if you don't know this guide and you do podcasting, but also if you just work with long form video or if you want to work with dialogue in general, like voiceover or streaming. I'm using Reaper to stream, and I'm using a lot of what I learned here to process the audio from my microphone. So definitely worth reading all this, because it's not just about podcast editing, as in the first impression may be that it's just about editing, but it's much more than that. It's also about setting effects and workflow and custom actions. It's a great introduction to what Reaper can do that no other DAW can do. And it has great suggestions like using Nova and how to set everything up, and the tri-leveler, which I absolutely love. I'm using it right now. And yeah, I think that this part probably needs an update, because since this article was released, this is no longer the best limiter in Reaper. There is real limit now, but in any case, great tutorial. Shout outs to Podgy and Riley. Right, so 2 feature requests. The first is that let's try to reproduce the issue over here. I am going to maybe just extend everything. further, so I have more room to play with. And the thing is, if you have transitions that happen too fast, suppose there's something like this, and then something like that. And I suppose that this is going to be fast, right? Maybe even faster. So the complaint is that if people switch between talking and not talking too fast, the Automixer is just going to move around like crazy or change cameras like crazy. And no one is happy with flickering video, right? So can I move this envelope here, please? So this may be like someone saying, you know what I mean? So this person was like talking for a while. And see why I don't have real dialogue here? It's because I can do these sorts of things to really test stuff. So complaint is that if there is this situation where someone's speaking, then suddenly someone says, and then the person continues speaking, it's going to switch cameras too fast, which doesn't look all too good. So let's see if we can reproduce the issue. It didn't really occur, so let's make this more drastic. Really wish there was a way for me to move just these 2 pointers, but I don't think there is. Oh, there you go. So let's make this as long as necessary for a camera switch to occur. Okay, it switched to 1 and then back to 2. So a camera switch is occurring. And I kind of remember implementing something to the effect of a hold, but I don't really remember if it's there or if it works. Maybe it's there and you just have to tweak it. Yeah, let's look at what the Automixer can do. And a cool thing about this is that this red indicator is the camera that is active. So you actually see these two changing at the same time. Or maybe a couple frames after because of lag, but you know what I mean. It's probably lag in the reproduction, not really lag in the rendering, if you were to render this. Right, so I know that when I developed this back in the day, REAPER did not have the feature that it currently has of showing and hiding sliders. That's why there is track priority for 4 tracks. Of course, there is track priority for 32 tracks. You just don't see that. And there is some sliders that are hidden for the video processor part of things. I don't show you any of those sliders. So let's look at what the sliders are here. Okay, so mode is... Oh, okay, I remember someone asking for that. This is the Automixer doing its thing. But you can also apply the different gains. I didn't even remember this feature. You can apply the different gains to the different channels, but not mix them. And the reason why you would want that is maybe you want to apply some post Automixer effects before you actually mix stuff, or you may want to send this to different places. So you can do the mixing without really mixing, which is kind of fun. And you can also bypass. And you have to bypass using this instead of using the REAPER bypass because of the whole routing shenanigans that we talked about. If you bypass in REAPER and you mute channel 1, you don't hear channels 2 and 3. So that's that. It has nothing to do with the video thing. Then the number of channels per track, usually 2, but you may have multi-channel microphones on your podcast. What does that? Like quadrophonic effects per person, but it's supported. Reaction time, that is for the computation of RMS, which is going to guide the sliders. And then strength. Strength is just, if you think that the Automixer is pulling things on and off too much, you can say, no, back off. you're not allowed to make so many drastic moves. And this is like, go ahead, go crazy. That's not it. Then there is a bug in the look ahead that I know of. The look ahead is in milliseconds. When you have a look ahead of 0, you're supposed to have 0 samples of latency. So I know that there is a bug. I have to look at the look ahead in milliseconds here, and we'll fix the first bug of this endeavor. And it is right here. So the plugin delay compensation is the look ahead in samples -1. Easy stuff, and it's fixed. Now it is not reporting any latency when the look ahead is 0. And there is another bug related to the look ahead, which we will fix later, but it doesn't have to do with the feature requests. So I'll just leave this for later. But this was such a low hanging fruit, and I had this in my head for months now. So it's great that I put this -1 in there. Typical of by one mistake. Then the track priority is over here, and that is just a multiplier effectively. It's like a drive knob. You can think of this as like multiplying the gain before the calculation and then dividing by some gain after. So it's not really increasing the volume of anything, but it's giving like maybe a host a higher priority when there is crosstalk. So those are the sliders that you do see. Then there is this instance identifier in case you have multiple Automixers. Maybe you have some people in a room with multiple microphones, some people in a different room with multiple microphones, and they are talking. 2 conference rooms, and your podcast is a group of people here, a group of people there. You may want to have different Automixer for different rooms, because you have to deal with different room noise, and then you mix the sub-mixes. You can do that, and in that case, the Automixer for video may not work super well. So in that case, you may want to have different instances of the Automixer for video, and this is just for the video stuff. So that's what this is about. So like, I don't think anyone ever used this feature, but it's there. Then there are 2 settings here. The track gain maximum. The track gain maximum has to do with the computation of this, the red thing here, which is going to determine the video track. So this is the track gain maximum is determining the track that is dominating, the track that will be the camera that you see. And there is here 2 settings related to that. They are hidden. You can see the minus sign. And let's see what they are. So this is the maximum difference. This is like hysteresis, I think. The difference between a track and another one. So if 2 tracks are like cross-talking, I don't want them to be switching so fast. So I have to, one track has to be louder than another one by this much for it to trigger a scene change or a camera change. So this is like the difference, the relative difference between tracks for a track to be considered the dominating one at that point. And then there is a debounce in milliseconds, which is like the track gain maximum reaction time. This sounds a lot like what Riley requested, but it may not be working exactly right, or it may not be doing what he was talking about, because his idea was just after you switch to a camera, you hold on that camera for a while. So even if for whatever reason someone says, or yeah, right. So if someone says that and that triggers a camera change, that may be acceptable. What is not acceptable is triggering a camera change and then triggering another camera change back too fast. So his request was to have a hold value. And that may be this. But this setting may not have a good default, or it may not really be this. We have to check on the code and really understand what's going on there. So that's request number 1. We may have something for this already. Let me talk about request number 2 real quick. It is related to this idea of a hold. So the thing is, a camera switch happens. You want to hold on that camera for a little while. You don't want to switch to another one too fast. That's request number 1. Request number 2 is, if you have stayed on that camera for too long, again, it has to do with this notion of how much time has elapsed since the last camera switch. Second request is, if too much time has passed since the last camera switch, that can be boring. You will be looking at the same person for too long. You want to switch to a different camera. And in that case, there will be a setting which is like let's say there is a wide angle camera and that camera shows everyone in the room. So it's a round table, a camera per person, and an extra camera showing everyone. If a camera has been on for too long, you want to switch to the wide one and then switch back to whoever is speaking after a certain amount of time, after the hold has elapsed. So those are the 2 features that we want to implement. And of course, there are plenty more features that I want to implement for the Automixer, but I'm going to focus on these 2, and I'm not going to use the library, I promise. I will really try to not use the library and rewrite the whole thing. I want to get these 2 features for Riley out the door, and then we can circle back and add more features. And yesterday even, I was talking to Aria on the stream, and there is this very nice idea of letting the Automixer drive OBS so that you could do the camera switching on a live situation for a live stream. That's a very cool idea. I'm not going to focus on that now. But that idea may fly. It's workable. All you have to do is, instead of sending a signal to a video processor, you send some MIDI. Because as far as I can tell, the only way that JSFX will be able to communicate with the outside world is via MIDI, or maybe even sending audio. You could send a signal via audio, but it makes a lot more sense to use MIDI. So the Automixer could, instead of just sending or setting this place in memory to communicate with the video processor, you could also send a MIDI message. The MIDI message could trigger something that would change a scene in OBS. And that could be a lot of fun, but let's not focus on that right now. Let's focus on these 2 features. So hold and switching to a different camera. I'm going to start by maybe creating a repository here, because I'm on this development version here and I want to keep track of my changes. Oh, there is already a repository there, isn't there? Great. So I want to commit this because we already made a change, really. We changed that -1 thing. And there is a bug about the look ahead. That is something that Riley also complained about, but I wasn't really in a position to fix because I didn't really understand the situation. But now I do, because there is this video by Dan Worrell explaining how look ahead is supposed to work. We may get into that. But first, let's focus on what this slider is even doing. So we have here a computation. So that slider is only used in one place. I think I'm going to open this in Visual Studio Code. Yeah, I think I prefer to work here. So this is the development version, and we are looking at this. So that number is only used here. So it's given by the user in milliseconds. And if you wanted to change this slider around, the way you could do it, it's a hidden slider, but it's still there. It's still a slider. So what you can do is you come here to param and param list, and then you may want to show this in the track controls, on the track envelope. Maybe track controls would be fine for us. And then we can look at this. So now we have a setting over here that allows us to change that hidden parameter. But that parameter is given to us in milliseconds. The name says, you can see in the tooltip right here. But internally, we don't work with milliseconds, we work with samples. So I compute the translation from milliseconds to samples. I wonder if this formula is right. I will cross-check it with the library, where we do have an milliseconds to samples. It looks like that. And of course, this should be right because I tested it in the past, but who knows? So you just take this the value in milliseconds, multiply by the sample rate, and then divide by 1,000 or multiply by 0.001. They are the same thing. Multiplying by 0.001 is marginally faster, probably. I don't know, haven't measured, but word on the street is that that's faster. So, and then there is a maximum. So if you say that you want a maximum of 0, you really don't care about glitching, which I do allow in the slider, which is like crazy. You probably shouldn't be using that, and I probably want to calibrate this slider a little better. But if you do that, I don't want to have 0 samples of the bouncing. Probably the algorithm doesn't handle that all that well. And then there is this. This variable is the same as the other one, but instead of being in milliseconds, it's in samples. So let's see how this is used. Well, it is used in the sample block, it seems. Yes, it's in the sample block. And oh, this effect is so short. It's only 200 lines of code. In our library, we already have 1,200 lines of code. And the Automixer is only 250. That's so nice. It's so cool how much you can do with just a little of JS effects. And look at this. This 2 pages of code is the whole sample block. And this Automixer has some features that no other Automixer has, which it's like super nice. But let's see. So it's right at the end of the sample block. And as far as I remember, the sample block will do the sonic part first. And it seems like it ends here because at this point, we have computed the samples and we have set the samples. So at this point, we have produced the sample. But then we have this whole shenanigans of the track gain maximum situation, which is for the video portion. And it seems like I have a loop. Yep, I loop over each track. Oh, and I then loop over each track again. And then I loop over each track again. And then I loop over each track again. Okay, so this is the last loop, the one that we are looking at. And this is going to be computing the RMS of the track after it has been attenuated. And that's for 2 reasons. To display in the user interface, here, this right-hand bar, but also for computing what is the maximum. So let's see what the maximum calculation looks like. Well, we need to know what is the track and what is the gain. We need to know the track to, well, display it, to send it to the video portion of the Automixer and all of that. But we also need the gain, and probably we need the gain because we need to know that difference that is going to trigger a scene change or a track change. And in fact, another thing that just occurs to me is that this whole computation of the maximum is just for the video portion of things. So most people are not using that, and they're still paying the price of this computation. You can see that the Automixer, it was my first effect, didn't really know a lot about making things fast, and it takes about 0.5% of CPU, which is a lot. I mean, it's not incredibly high, but it's still a lot for what it does. It doesn't have to be that much. I think there are ways to make this faster. We'll see. But one of the low-hanging fruits is definitely not computing all this stuff that you just need for the video portion or even for the user interface if the video portion is not being used or if the interface is not being displayed. Right. So we compute in this loop the track gain, which is this slider over here. And then we check if the maximum gain, oh, so we also need to keep track of the maximum gain because of that. But if the maximum gain is less than the current track gain, then update the two variables, these two variables. Awesome. Then at the end of this loop over here, we will have a new maximum candidate. I would say it's a candidate. It is the current instantaneous maximum gain, but it may not be the one that we want to switch to, because that may be glitching, right? We don't want to switch too fast in moments of crosstalk. So over here, we will have a computation of debouncing these changes. And essentially what we are talking about in the first feature, which is the hold, is debouncing. So let's check. If the new candidate maximum is within, so we do a subtraction, take the absolute value, and less than. This is a telltale sign that we are interested in the absolute difference, or, well, that's just a tautology, isn't it? But I'm just interested in how far, what's the distance between the current candidate and the current candidate and the current maximum. And oh, this is kind of a clever trick that I'm doing here, because if the current maximum, which is this, the current maximum and the current candidate are the same, their subtraction is going to be less than this amplitude. The amplitude is positive, so this is going to trigger. And then the bounce is going to trigger. So you're not switching because you're still in debounce mode. That's clever, okay. But otherwise, I will subtract 1 from the debounce. So this debounce is the number of samples that we set way above the one that we were actually looking at, the one that we are interested in. So that's that. And that's the number of samples that you have to hold being the current maximum. So you see that I will here subtract 1 from that. And I will keep subtracting 1 from that. Yeah, that's right. So you only get here if there is a difference between the current maximum and the candidate. If that difference holds for some time. So that's when you get here and you keep subtracting 1 over and over. When you get to 0, then you switch the scene, and that's what switching the scene looks like. You just take the current track and you put it in the global memory for the video processor to access that global memory and switch the scene. I see a bug here. So it seems like we have implemented this reaction time effectively looks like a hold. Let's reason about this for a moment. The reaction time is not really well, it is a hold, but it also delays the scene switch for a little while. So not really a hold. It will prevent things from moving too fast, but not quite, because there is a bug. So let's start taking notes here. We have 2 features that we care about. I'll put this under the description. 2 features that we care about. Hold, and I'll call this the wide angle camera. You know what I mean. So for the hold, what we currently have is reaction time. I'll put some markers here for us to remember. This looks like Markdown now. So the hold is, let's reason about this. We currently have reaction time, which affects hold, but isn't hold. It doesn't affect hold, which may act like hold, but isn't hold. Let me explain the difference. Reaction time is when something happens, I wait to react on that. It's like an attack on a compressor, because it delays the camera switch. When someone starts speaking, which may not be desirable, really. You may want to switch to that person as soon as they start speaking. No, I don't think so, because if you think about a human editing multi-camera situation, usually they do it like this. Someone starts speaking, and then a split second passes, and then you switch to them. And I think that's why I had implemented this in the past. I was thinking about this, where you usually hear something before you see something. Like, pretend that you are talking to people, someone says something, and then you look at them. Someone says another thing, and then you look at them. So there is this reaction time naturally when you are in the physical world. And editors tend to do that too. And that's what the reaction time is. And it can act like a hold, because if the person who is currently speaking stops speaking, you don't switch to them. So if you are looking at someone and someone else says something long, after a split second, you look at them. But if you're talking to you're looking at someone and someone just says or yeah, that's right, you may not react to that. You may not look at them. That's what all of this is about. So it acts like a hold in some situations, but there is a bug. Let's look at what the bug is. The bug is this. Suppose that there is a situation, and by the way, the reason, before I talk about the bug, this setting is probably the reason why when our camera switch was too fast, or when our interjection here was too fast, we didn't see a camera change. So let's look at this again. Camera change is going to happen, switching to 1, switching back to 2, and I can already see the effects of the reaction time. This delay that we see between someone starts speaking, like over here where they start speaking, and the camera switch, there is a delay, and that's because of the reaction time, probably. Yeah, right. And I think that I set the reaction time too high, and I remember playing around with this value to set the default, and I set this default because it worked well to debounce, not switching cameras too fast. But it may be too long. I think that a human editing this will hold for a split second, but for less than this. And in fact, this was so long that when they stopped speaking, I switched to camera 1, and then it took me a while to switch to camera 2. So it sounds like it's too slow, and it's probably too slow because I was trying to use reaction time to do holding. They're not the same, and I should implement hold too. I think that reaction time is good for the reason I mentioned. Like, there is a time between you hearing someone and looking at them, but I think that hold also has value. So we need to implement a hold, and we need to fix the bug. And the default may be too long because I was trying to use reaction time as hold to prevent flickering. And there is the bug. So let's talk about the bug. And the bug, I haven't really seen it, but it's just something that I looked at in the code, and it makes sense in the code. So we can try to reproduce that using some waveforms here. Let me explain what I think the bug is. Suppose that someone is speaking, so they are the current master, the current camera, and then someone says something like and that is going to register here. So it's going to start the debouncing mechanism, and then that person stops speaking and someone else starts speaking. You are in the middle of the debounce, but you're not going to reset that because someone else started speaking. So this track gain maximum is going to be this third person, and they are above the current camera by a big margin. So we are not going to debounce with respect to that person. So I think that what we should be doing is we should be checking. When we are in this scenario, we are in the middle of the debounce, we should be checking if we are trying to debounce for the same target, for the same candidate here, for the same candidate. If another candidate comes into the scene, I should restart debouncing. Yeah, right. So let's take note of this, but there is a bug. The debouncing, the reaction time debouncing doesn't reset when a different candidate dominates. I think this will be good enough. We'll know what this is about. So this bug may cause glitches. I think it may cause glitches. Yeah, we have to experiment with this, as at least it doesn't sound correct to not take in account the person who we are debouncing for, the candidate that we are debouncing for. So that's a bug. We can fix that. And let's try to reproduce this issue and see if it comes up. So I guess what it looks like is, first, let's have something short so that the reaction time will prevent us from switching to number 1. See, a change in camera did not occur. Let's make this longer, just in case. Yeah, I never switched to camera 1 because of the reaction time. So, okay. Yeah, let's try to reproduce the issue that I was just talking about. We will have this same envelope with these points. Let's apply these points over here on track 3. So I am aware that my reaction time is too long, and maybe I will want to switch to the different cameras in these contexts, but right now we are not because of the reaction time. But let's have 2 short bursts. Something like this. Yeah, this is what I'm thinking about. So this is exactly what I'm thinking about. So person 2 is on the camera, then they stop speaking and someone interjects, and this is going to trigger the debounce, but we know that with this length, the debounce is not going to let you go to camera 3. But then someone else starts speaking. The debounce is going to continue rolling because we are not taking care of checking the target. The candidate was 3 and now the candidate is 1, but the reaction time is still going. The counter is still rolling. And then we'll switch to 1. While before we were not switching to 1. Okay, it didn't happen. Maybe I need it to be longer. Let's see how long is 300 milliseconds in this context. Or 350. Is it 350? Yeah, it's 350. So 350 looks like this length. So it feels to me that from the beginning here, the window is in front of it. Yeah, 300 milliseconds definitely pass in this, and yet we don't switch camera. Isn't that something? Let's watch what the Automixer thinks it's supposed to do, because I'm not sure I trust this. I sort of saw some lag here, and I think it has to do with rendering. Yeah. Oh, now it switched to camera 1. Did you see that? Did you catch that? It was fast. And that was a fast move. We probably don't want that. That's probably what we want to avoid. Let's watch this again. Yeah, that doesn't look too nice because of the reaction time, when it triggers 1 is kind of already over. Yep. If you watch this screen and the cursor over here, when it switches to 1, I'm going to try to pause when it switches to 1. There. The person is already almost over and they just said, anyway. It doesn't sound too good, or it probably doesn't look too good. Yeah, at this time, I probably have some delay when I stop, right? I'm not so fast, but there is probably the person stopped speaking and then it switched to them, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I think that what we want is maybe to even remove this notion of reaction time, or just definitely lower the reaction time, but then have a hold. Okay, so that sounds good. So let's commit what we have, which I think is just comments. Yep. And I think I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to implement the hold first. I'm going to address this bug because it may not be too bad of a bug. We'll see. So there's another thing to consider. If like, suppose that we have 5 people and then there is this person dominating, and then we have a sequence of person 2, person 3, person 4, person 5 saying short things. You don't want to keep hanging on the person who finished speaking in the first place. So this reaction time not taking care of who is the candidate, so the bug that I think I found, it may not matter. You do want to switch to someone, maybe to the wide angle when in doubt. When in doubt, go to the wide angle. That could be a good one, in case you have a wide angle. Yeah, so I think we should implement hold first, because it's going to be relatively straightforward. Then we look at what to do with the reaction time. And then we go to the wide angle camera. And it's going to have to do with hold 2. Yeah. Let's... in the init block, I don't have any variables in the init block. Cool stuff. Well, I have constants, but not variables, real variables. All right, so the way that we are going to implement this is this. Here is where we switch to a different camera, right? So let's make this a block. And we'll have a variable called track gain maximum hold is equal to 0. And I wonder why this is highlighting and this is not. I don't know. So this is... I'm setting it to 0, but I could count down the same way that I'm counting down here with the debounce. So let's add a hidden slider for this. It will be a hidden slider for now. I'm just trying to get this working as a working prototype as soon as I can. So we'll add a slider 22, which is the track gain maximum, not the reaction time, the hold. In milliseconds, all right. So this is going to be, instead of T-bounce in MS, well, it should be reaction time in an MS, but whatever. Hold MS. And then how much do I want to hold for? Maybe 300 milliseconds is a good value for a hold. And this range is crazy, but whatever, we'll have to deal with it. So now let's find where we have this and do the same for hold. And then over there where we change the scenes, we can have something like this, where we set the hold to be the number of samples. So similar to that logic, see? And this okay, yeah, I think I like that. And then we just want to make sure that we update this hold. So over there, outside any conditionals, I'll subtract the hold. So it's going to start counting from the number of samples down to 0. And in order to be able to switch scenes, I need to have elapsed the hold. I'm just being very careful and rereading everything here to make to see if all of this makes sense. Yeah, I think that instead of equal to 0, I'll do less than or equal, because this will keep going around. And I will check if the hold is less than 0. Or equal to, it doesn't really matter all that much, but whatever. Maybe I'll do it like this. And I think that this implements a hold. Let's see what this does. I think I can do just a full compile reset, and I think that will do it. But just in case, I'm going to remove and re-add the track. Not the video processor, the Automixer. Here it is. Hang in there. Let's give this some more room. Okay, it is still kind of acting the same, but now I can. I think what I should do is add these parameters to the track, or maybe I'll not hide them for now, for development. I'll leave myself here to do hide this. Hide these sliders. And as I remove and re-add, then we'll have access to them. Oh, no. wrong effect, development version. Here we have those sliders. So now I can take the reaction time all the way down to 0. And the hold, I think it makes more sense. 300 milliseconds may be too little. So maybe half a second is a good hold. Looks good, I think. Switch to 3. Isn't that odd? Let me look at here instead. Yeah, it switches to 3 and then back. Okay, probably because there is no reaction time. So it switches to 3 and then it holds on to 3, doesn't go to 2. I want to watch the variables. I want to see the hold going down. This is the current hold, and this is the hold, it's slider. All right. See, it goes up and then it starts going back down. Great. So this hold is just allowing us to switch scenes after a debounce. Great. Let's commit what we have, because I think we have implemented the hold. And then for the wide camera angle, let's implement that as well, because it's going to be easy, I think. Yeah, I think it will be easy. All I have to do is add another slider, which will be slider 23, or maybe even slider 24. I'm going to give a little space here, and I will need 2 arguments. I will need, I guess we determined that 350 is too much, so I'll probably do something like this. I think that this is better. So this is going to be, I don't even know what to call this. I'm going to call this the drag gain maximum. Maximum duration. Terrible name, but it is what it is. So I'll call this the maximum duration. And of course, that is in milliseconds. And of course, that needs to be longer than that. So I'll say that if you stay on the same camera for 3 seconds, that's too long. I'm going to switch to something else. And this slider probably wants to be at like 10 seconds, something like that. And this is in milliseconds, so that's why it's 10,000. So that's the maximum duration in milliseconds, but we also need to know to which camera to switch to. So the maximum duration camera, and by default, it is going to be camera 0, which 0 means disabled. This is going to be the maximum duration camera. 0 is disabled. Good enough. So this way, oh, and of course you don't want to have steps that are fractions, and you probably don't want to have as many cameras. Probably 20 cameras is good enough, and if necessary, you can always type in the value. So this is going to be the camera to which we switch, and 0 means I'm not switching. So now let's go to where we do this. Now let's go to where we do. Ooh, I got a call. Can I reject the call? Thanks. So let's go to where we do that. And instead of hold, it will be maximum duration. And the camera is not in milliseconds. And the camera, I don't have to convert to anything. It's already a number, so that's fine. And then over here, I am subtracting 1 from the maximum hold. So all I have to do is check if I am over. So I will first check if I have any camera to go to. I will also check if my hold value is less than negative samples. See what I'm doing there? I'm using 0 as enabling the hold. Oh, and this could be after the hold. So I'm going to say that this is not 3 seconds. It's more like 2.7 or 2.5. So it will hold for at least as much. And then it will wait for this long, and then it's going to go to the other camera, to the wide angle. Hello, Bo. How are you doing? It's great to have you here, Bo. I had something I wanted to ask you, but I forget. I will remember probably. Right, so this is in milliseconds. Let me find it in samples. And I'm going to, okay, so the trick is this hold variable is going to start positive. It's going to go down to 0. So after it's negative, you can, if necessary, switch cameras. But if it goes into the negatives for too long, it's going to go below this value. And in that case, I want to switch to a different camera. How do I switch to a different camera? I do this, where this, and the tracks are already 0 indexed. So I think I need to say this -1. Of course, I could just say that -1 is disabled, but I think that thinking about cameras counting up from 1 from a user's perspective makes more sense. So 0 is going to be disabled, and in camera 1 onwards. But I do need to subtract 1 because internally cameras start counting at 0. And then I, of course, reset the hold because I don't want to flicker into the other camera too fast after I have gone to the wide angle. Right, so I think that this implements the wide angle. Let's see. Remove, re-add, development version. Come on, Leandro. Development version, and then let's say that I want to go to camera 3 if I have been on a single camera for too long. And then let's make this camera, just hold on. Is this 3 seconds? Yes, it is. It's 17 seconds. So we are in camera 2. And we never go to camera 3. What's up with that? Oh, I didn't set camera 3 here. And Tail is here. Hello. Great to have you all here. I am doing some video stuff today. I'm doing the Automixer for video, and that's always a joy. Okay, so it switched to camera 3. Let's see this in action again. So it's in camera 2 and then it switches to 3. Was that too fast? Oh, it's switching back and forth. So it's doing something. Right. Yeah, but I just don't remember what I was going to ask. But yeah, so this camera is going back and forth because when it gets to camera 3, when it gets to camera 3, of course, camera 2 is the loudest, so it should switch to that after 100 milliseconds. No, after 500 milliseconds. Let's hold for like 2 seconds to see this really shine. I feel like I'm missing some arguments here. Am I right? Oh, I have this slider 24 2 times. That's no good. Let's try this again. Ignore everything that happened, because when you have two sliders with the same number, all hell breaks loose. So let's say that I want to go to camera 3 after 2.5 seconds after the hold. So we are in camera 2. So wait for it. We switch to camera 3. Oh no, we're not switching, are we? Is this not too... Yeah, this is 25 seconds. This is 2.5 seconds. And this is 10 seconds. Let's try this again. So I'm in camera 2. Wait for 3 seconds. Oh, I didn't set the camera. Come on. I am in camera 2. I switched to camera 3 briefly, but then I switched back to 2. That's because 2 is still the loudest, but it's not respecting the hold. It doesn't seem. Let's make the hold. Or maybe it is. Half a second is very fast. Yeah, maybe the hold is too fast. Let's say that you should hold on a camera for 2 seconds. And if you are on that camera for 4.5 seconds, let's make it 5 seconds. So 2 is a hold, 2 seconds is the hold, 3 seconds plus 2, so 5 is the length of the wide angle camera situation. Words are hard. Camera 3 is going to be our wide angle. So I'm on 2. I'm on 3. And I'm back on 2. I think it could be nice for the wide angle to have a higher hold, because it's not playing the same game as the loudness game. So I will say that this is how long to go, for how long you have to wait to go to that camera, then what is the camera, and how long you have to be on that camera after you go to it. It will play a different game. So this is going to be... Since I'm giving things such bad names, why don't I do that? Yeah, if you go to the wide angle, you're going to hold there for 4 seconds. And I'll call this the hold. These names. Let's find where I convert this value. And let's convert the other value as well. And then, oh, this is not in milliseconds, this is in samples. Which means that over here where I reset, I would just reset to a different value. I am on 2. Then I'm going to go to the wide one. I'm not going there. What's up with that? Should have committed. So now I don't really know what's up. I am on 2, then wait for 5 seconds. Oh, I didn't set the camera, that's what's up. Okay, then I go to the wide angle. I should hold there for a little bit longer. Then I go back to the person who's speaking. That makes sense. Then I go back to 3. And then I stay at 3, and then I go to 2. All right, that's fine. I think that this is working relatively well. I think that we accomplished our goals. And of course, there's still the bug that we may want to address. But yeah, that's progress. I am going to commit this and maybe even get in touch with Riley, see what he thinks about this. For now, I will sign off. So tomorrow, I probably will continue working on this. Maybe doing this bug situation, or maybe, you know what? I streamed a lot this week. So tomorrow, I'm taking the day off. On Monday, I will be with Arya over at IDDQD Sound, and we'll be talking about his pitch shifter. And we probably will implement some cross-fading between the grains. It will be fun. But tomorrow, day off. Enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy your weekend. I see you on Monday. And thank you, Bo and Tail, for being here. Thank you, everyone else who is here. And thank you, Riley, for supporting the channel, for giving me all these nice ideas about the Automixer. And I see you on Monday. Have a good one. Bye.